All right, the panel, and I'll respond to those questions so everyone can benefit from the questions and the answer. Also want you to know that we are doing a recorded session and we will be sending that recorded session out at a later date. Okay, everyone should be seeing the login screen at this time. We want to notate a few things here. If I click the Remember Me, it will remember my account number and my username. Most of you should have received the welcome email that provides this information for you. If you haven't, we are working through those that have been migrated this week, and hopefully by the end of the week, you'll receive your email. Now for FSC Rater, we are only migrating those that have quotes in a cloud activated at this time. So if you don't have quotes in a cloud activated and you want to come over to the upgrade, please contact the support team and get that quotes in a cloud activated. Okay, so also notice here on the login screen, we have a forgot your login. Each user has to have a unique email address on their user in the system, and the way we do the forgot your login is via email. Up here in the right-hand corner, you'll notice I have a little yellow smiley face. Internet Explorer 11 is the only supported browser at this time for the product. So you want to make sure you're using Internet Explorer. You can click on the help and it'll show you your Internet Explorer version, or just checking that smiley face in the corner. So we've talked about the Remember Me, the login. Of course, down here is our customer support team. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to them. They are available for you. I'm going to go ahead and enter my password so we can get started with the rating. Okay, as you log in each day, the first item you'll see is the Fair Federal Credit Reporting Act. We do recommend that you use I accept, I agree to get the majority of the carriers to rate for you. When I click this, if you're logging in for the first time, a couple of things will happen that did not happen on my side. You may see an install screen. You'll have an install button. Just click the install and it will go through the process. Also, if you're logging in for the first time, it will prompt you to migrate your carrier credentials. Go ahead and say yes. It will migrate those to you for the new system. Once you get past that point, you'll come to the landing page. Talk a little bit about this page before we actually move into the quoting. Here at the top, you see that my account number is shown again. So if you ever contact support, they're going to want to know this account number, and potentially this vertifor number that's shown on the right-hand side. So these two values are very helpful when you're working with our support team. Here in the left-hand pane, you can see I have a list of clients. I can search those clients by a variety of items here so that I can find them, especially if I have multiple pages of clients. Over here on the right-hand side, because you have FSC Rater, Dwelling Fire, and Motorcycle, you may want to access those quotes at any time, and those links, if you click it, will just open up your desktop FSC Rater. Now, we do have Dwelling Fire available, but we did not originally, so we've left that link here. And we will go through all of the lines of business for the quoting. Here is the Did You Know? And it is a way for us to communicate new features, our releases, informational messages to you. Down here in the next section is the alerts. A lot of the carriers that we have in the system are real-time or carriers that have bridging functionality. The alerts allow us to let you know when the carrier has advised us they're having an issue. So if you're doing a quote, then you may, if you have an issue with a specific carrier, you'll want to come back here and check and see if we have an alert. Now, I do want you to know that the alert section is not specific to just California. As you can see, I've got a North Carolina alert there. So it's not specific to the state that you do rate, it's for all carriers. There's another section called announcements that will show below the alerts, and that is how we announce any new carrier that is released. We don't have any new carrier that was released today, but we're always releasing new content for each state. So that is specific to California. So as we release new ones, you'll see those announcements right down there. So on the landing page, we also have at the top of each page the selection, and we're going to start at the far right. Log out is an option that you'll need to use. Don't just close with the X in the corner. Go ahead and log out of the application and then close the browser. That way you get logged out of the database and you won't have any difficulties logging back in. The next item is the help. We have a very robust online help in the application. You can come in here and ask questions, and it will bring up topics for you. You can see it'll do a search here. You also have drop downs for things like getting started, all of the how-to features, some basic troubleshooting, and the what's new has all the release notice and information. So the help section is a great place as your first step. If you have a question, just come in to the online help and see if there's an answer there for you. The support option has 3 items available. My Vertafore is the database of record, and it has articles and how-to for all of our products, including the rating platform. So if you don't have a login to My Vertafore, you'll definitely want to get one. The next option is the support remote session. If you're working with our support team and they'd like to come into your workstation, clicking there will bring you up to the Connect Wise screen. And then Vertafore University is the last item. Vertafore University is where we have a lot of training available for all of our products. This upgrade training is special sessions. It's not in the Vertafore University because we're limiting it to those agents who are in the upgrade process. The reports, and we'll go down through each of these, are available here and on the utility screen. Generally, just high level, that quote report is going to give you a report of the quote status. Is the quote incomplete? Was it quoted or submitted? And then you can manually check sold or canceled so that you have a statistical report of the quotes. The transaction report is a lot more detailed. For each carrier that was rated for a client for a quote, there's an individual item. So you can see the premium returned for the carrier along with messaging. The audit history report allows you to see who made changes to a client or a quote. We'll go through the admin section with each item here so that you have all the information about the admin. Now, everyone has the admin option, but depending on your user level, you may not have all of the same items. And as we go down through them, I'll let you know which ones are available to all users or only the admin. So we'll start at the top with Manage Users. Manage Users is available to all users, but you may, depending on your user level, only see your user, or you may see all. I'm in as an agency admin, and you can see I'm seeing everyone here. I have the ability to click Edit on any specific user. I can change their user level, whether they're restricted, a location user, a location admin, and as you see, the box over here changes as I make a different selection to tell you which each user has the ability to do. And then back to that agency admin for Ricky. Also down here at the bottom, there are some permissions. We have templates that allow you to determine or enter defaults for almost all values in a quote, but you may not want all users to be able to access the template. As an agency admin, you may want to have some control over that. So if you do not want an individual user or an admin, anyone in the system, to be able to go to templates, you simply uncheck that option. I'm going to go ahead and cancel out of Ricky. Also notice up here there's a export spreadsheet. You can see I have multiple pages of users. Instead of going back and forth to the pages, I can click Export Spreadsheet and see this exact data in a spreadsheet just on one page. So that's the Manage Users. Do you want to mention up here, I have the admin options, but once I'm in the admin utility on the left-hand side, I also have it over here on this side. So that's the Manage Users. Now we did import or migrate the users, active users that you had in your desktop FSC Rater into the system, you may want to go up and just check on them to make sure each one of them does have a unique email address so that they can log in and reset their password if needed. We're going to go down to Manage Templates, and as you noted, the Manage Templates may or may not be available for a user based on that allow or permissions on the user. We have templates for auto, home, and dwelling fire. I'm going to just do a home template real quick to get us started. You can see here for my agency, I have a template. It shows you that I created it and when I did. Going to do a new template. The template is just like the line of business workflow. So here I can give the template a name. I can determine if I want all carriers on it. If I only want a few carriers selected, I can go down and do that. Let's talk a little bit about these carriers identifying. Here you can see the group at the top have the green dot. They also identify in the text for that carrier that it's a real-time carrier. Here the yellow dots are carriers that we maintain. They're called manufactured, but they do have the bridge submit functionality. And then these down at the bottom that do not have a dot do not have the bridge functionality, but they are a manufactured carrier. So I can select as many carriers as I want in the template and then go next. Here you'll see on the template page that some of the fields are gray and are not available for you. That's because it would be a unique value per quote. So the effective date we don't allow you to set. It must be selected on each. In the template and in the home line of business, you have a variety of forms, being the type of home quote, whether it's a renter's, a homeowner's, a condo. And we'll talk more about that as we go through the home. But I can go down through here and I can select any value I want or leave the value blank so that the user would be required to select it as I go forward. These screens are all the same, as in if it's grayed out, you cannot enter. If it's got an available drop down or a field that you can type in, then you can set it up for a template. I'm not going to go all the way through the template because we'll see these screens as we go through the home quote. But if you have any questions, again, under help, online help, there are step-by-step details of how to complete for each line of business the template. We're going to go ahead and exit back. Here, the next field we're going to look at is the Manage Passwords. Now, this has to do with your real-time or bridging carriers. The list available here is based on the carriers that you select as your inventory. And we'll look at where you make changes to that when we look at the agency information. When you select a value, the red fields will indicate that it's a required field. So you can see here the username and password for California Mutual are required. If I select Hartford, you can see that all three are required. So once you go through and enter or update these, you just click the Save. Again, the first time that you do log in, it will ask you to migrate your credentials from the desktop FSC Rater to this system. You can go in and just maintain them, make sure they're correct. Maybe you've updated the password on a carrier's website and haven't actually done that in the FSC Rater desktop application. You may need to come in here and edit that carrier also. The next item in the drop-down is Transfer Business. Now, if you have a user that someone leaves your agency, and you want to be able to delete that user so that you can use that, free up that license, you will have to move those clients from one user to the other. And it's as simple as selecting the user in the top from and a user in the bottom. Now, it's an all or nothing thing, so I would be moving all of Ricky's quotes over to Noah if I clicked OK. We're not going to do that to the guys today because they're still both working here for us. Okay. The reports is the same option as we saw over here under the reports. There's an additional one listed, that's the MVR report. If you enable agent paid MVR, then you do have a report to let you see which clients the report was run on. But again, these are very nice reports. You can either get them from the reports dropdown or from here. As an agency admin, I have the ability to log out users. So log out users lets me see who's in the system right now. And if I had someone who maybe left for lunch or had to leave quickly, I could come in here and log that individual out so that they were no longer in the system. I did forget to manage that manage passwords is all users. Transfer business is only admin. Reports are only admin. Log out users are only admin. Manage leads are an admin function. Now, if you're doing any kind of marketing and you'd like to track those, you see that I can create a category and I can enter a lead source. So if I've got a radio ad and in that ad I tell them, hey, when you call in to get a quote, let us know that you heard us on the radio. You can then select from the quote that it was a radio lead, and that way track your marketing to see what's most effective for you. So you can add multiple categories and multiple sources. Again, the admin does this, and you'll see when we do a quote where you select that feature. So the only other option here that's not on the left hand is manage agency information. So we'll go ahead and go up there. It opens in a new window, and this is where you can make changes to your account. If you happen to move and you need to change the address as an agency admin, you can come here and update your address. You have some options. If you don't want the Social Security numbers to be visible, and in other words, if a user is typing a Social Security number and you don't want that to be seen on the screen, it encrypts it with each, you can put a checkbox there. If you want to use multi-factor authentication, that's where you check that. Your users will need to go through and set up a ping ID and complete that process. We also have a feature for the agency called Use IP Agency Security. So if you only want your users to be able to log in from the office and not from home, you can implement IP Agency Security. On the carrier tab, here is where you can always see all of the available carriers, and you can make choices for which carriers you have selected by putting a check or an uncheck in it. You have auto, home, and dwelling fire available for each of those lines of business to select the carrier. Here on the products tab, if you change your management system or get a new management system, you can see on the right-hand side, I have the ability to select the management system. Here on the left-hand side, you can see I have our account that is a test account set up with 3 common management systems. You also, as an agency, here on the agency fee side, can say, all right, I'd like to have an agency fee applied to each quote, and you can set up that value. So that is the agency information. When you make changes, all you do is click next until you get to the summary, which is finish, and then that implements it. So if you make changes to your carriers, it is available to the users as soon as you click the finish to implement the changes. All right, let me get back to our landing page here. I think that ran down through everything that was available under the admin, reports, support, help, log out, and the landing page. So I'll stop for just a minute to see if you have any questions. Again, use the Q&A box to be able to submit that question to me. Okay, I have a question asking to go back through manage users really quick. So that's admin, manage users. It will bring up the list. It will bring up the list of users that are in your account. If you have available license, you can click new, and then you have a create button to create a new user. Okay, I hope that answered that question. I'll pause just a moment to see if there are any other questions before we go through a quote. All right. Now, we did migrate your quotes into the upgrade system. So when you log in, you will have a list of clients there available. What I'm going to do first is do a new client. So I have someone new come into the office. They're not existing in my system, and I need to create them. So when I click on New, it brings me up to the client screen. As I mentioned, the required fields are the one that have the red bar to the left. We're just going to go through and create, mark, apple leaf, and I'm using a test customer today so that I have a valid address. And marks the date of birth. And I'm going to make him single. You can see we have a variety of options there in the marital status. Okay, the address I'm going to use for Mark. I enter the address, and then I come down to the zip code, and I'm going to enter the zip code. When I click to go to the next field, it will do a lookup here, and you can see that I did get a message that says this address does not match the range of the system, but it did populate the county, the city, and the state for me so that I can have that information. This does not stop me from going forward just because the address did not verify. I am going to change the zip code so that you can see a verified address. I just changed that. It does the lookup again. And here I'm going to pick the Huntington Park, and that one didn't verify either. We're just going to move forward. Again, it doesn't stop me, but if it verified, it would mark with the check marks up here. I need to enter the residence type, and I'm going to say it's owned, and how long has he been at the address. If it's 3 years or less, the previous address field will populate. If it's 4 or more, then it goes on that address. The phone number is the next required field. There's no validation, and we're just going to enter values here. Now, if I have an additional insured, I can enter that information here. I can also enter drivers on the auto screens as I go through it. Now, I can click Save, and that will bring me back to the client screen. But if I click New Auto Quote at this point, it will save the client data and bring me right into the auto workflow. Now, here's that template that I can select if I want to select a template based on what I had. Just going to go with this one, pick a few carriers here. I want to talk a little bit about the carriers that are in red versus the carriers that are in blue. I am in a test system, and not all carriers provide the support team with the ability to rate carriers. So those are in red. As I hover over it, you can see I haven't entered the credentials for Allstate. But I come down here to Progressive Drive, and you can see that it shows me my username and my agency code. If I had multiple credentials set up, it would allow me to select which one I wanted to enter. Scroll down, I'm just going to pick a couple more carriers here, and scroll down and get just a few more so that I have a variety on my quote. Okay, so then I'm going to go next to move forward to the general information screen. Here, my template populates what I selected, but I can make changes. I like to use today as the effective date. Here is where your lead source is available if I wanted to say this was from the radio ad. Here I can select the billing and payment option. Here's my prior carrier information. Again, if I had populated all of that on the template, it would have filled in for me, but I've left my template relatively blank. If I select a expiration date that's in the past, you'll notice I get a reason for lapse here. But if I'm today or in the future, then I won't have that reason for lapse. I have length of coverage with prior carrier, and how long have they been in the agency. Here are the coverages available. I'm going to click Next to move forward to the vehicle screen. Here, Mark comes through. Now I know why his name didn't do. I really typed his name poorly. Here on the vehicle screen, I can add as many vehicles as I want here. Notice we have 6 as an option. I can add additional drivers here, or I can do it on the fly on the vehicle or the driver screen. We're just going to add one to Mark and click Next. Now, I typed Mark's name wrong, and that's going to bother me. So if I click this little pencil up here, it brings me right back up to the client. So I can correct Mark's name. There we go. I can save that. Here's Mark. I can click on his name. There's that auto quote that I started, and it brings me right into that vehicle screen. Now, I don't have a 17-digit VIN right now, so I'm just going to use it drop down for the year, for the make, and for the model. Once I click off that, you can see that I have vehicles to select based on engine size and all of those other things that determine the symbol. I select one. So I go down, annual miles is required because I have pleasure. That's the only one I have. But we're going to say that Mark uses this vehicle for work. That opened up a field for miles to work. When I populate that, it will calculate the annual miles. But I'm going to increase it a little bit because Mark drives the vehicle more than just back and forth to work. Here I can add additional coverages that weren't on my template, or I could change the coverages that I would like to have. As I click Next and move forward, you can see that the driver information comes up for Mark, and some of the information is populated based on what I entered for that client on that client screen. Here it wants to know percent of use. I'm going to give him 100%. All of this is calculating based on the client information. If I wanted to add that driver, I have another driver. I have an Add Driver button up here. I'm going to click Next to move through. Here is the incident information. I can select the incident that I want by category or by code, complete the required fields. If you have agent paid MVR implemented, that then populates this, and instead of saying agent entered, it does say it was agent paid MVR that populated the data. I'm going to have Mark have a clean driving record and just move forward. Here's those company questions. Again, if I had completed my template, I could have populated all of these in that template and then just changed the ones I needed here. As I answer no, it may turn turn answers on or off. Go down through here and see if I can get them all. If I have a lot of carriers, I may have more than one page. We would have a next page at the bottom. Go ahead and click Rate so we can get to the rate page. And you can see my quote status up here has moved to quoted because I have some carriers that have successfully rated the system for the quote. We'll wait, give Compass here a minute. Okay, looks like everybody's back. So let's talk a little bit about what's available here on this page. I'm going to start over here with the export. If I have a management system and I want to take the quote for Hartford back to the management system, I just click export and go through the steps to allow that to happen, and it will populate back in your management system. Here are the Accord forms. Again, I can click Accord forms, I can select the form, and it will populate the data from the quote. Here's my proposal. If I open that, it will open up in a new window. Hartford sends back their proposal, so you can see it's their logo, and it's the same look that you would get if you were on the Hartford website. Let's look at Aspire and see what they send us back. All right, they're using our generic proposal. It doesn't have their logo. It's the same proposal that any carrier that does not send theirs back does display. Notice that you can print them, you can save them, you have all of the functionality there. So here are some messages. I can click here for each one to see the messages that each carrier gave me. Specifically, here for Encompass, they did not rate this one quote. They did reject Mark, did not do it, and did not give me a rate. Here, because he's 70 years old, I'm not meeting for All-Star the criteria of what they're looking for. and go up through. You can also click the message button, and it will show you all of the messages. You can go through next here. You also have a print option to print all of the messages so you can see them all at once. Back over on the rating page, here you can see I have some fields that are not populated right now. I'm going to come over on the left for Hartford and click the plus sign. That's going to expand my options. Here, if I select a payment plan, then those fields will go ahead and populate on the comparison screen, and you'll see the number of pay, how much down, and what each installment will do. Also, you can see the details on the coverages for what the premium is for each coverage level. Let's go ahead and close that one out. I want to do the same thing with Progressive or Drive. Here I could pick another pay plan. For Progressive Drive, they did have a coverage that what I selected is not one that they rate. So it does show it to me in red, and it tells us that it's rated the next available limit or deductible. So that drop down and expand is really nice. Gives me a little better view on all of those, and then lets me select those pay plans. Here you can see that our premium may have been for 6 months, but we do give you the information for an annual. For each carrier, then, I can also click the Submit logo, and that will land me or submit over to the carrier's website so that I can issue that policy. There we go. Hartford, then, it lands me right on that quote so that I can continue. I do like to log out and then close it. Now, not all carriers have the ability to land us on a specific quote. Some do require some additional functionality. Some may require you to log in. Here at the top, I have quick coverage changes. I can click here, and let's say if I can make a change to this coverage and then save and rate. And it will change that for all of the quotes, the carriers that I did. Send it back over to rate again, so that I made a quick change right there, didn't have to go back to the general information, and it rated my carriers one more time for me. Here at the top, I can put a checkbox in all, and this print and print detail then become active. Now I can just select one or more. I have the ability to print or email this screen, just the comparison screen, or the detail as when we expanded it. I can either print or email either of those for the selected carriers. So that runs through the auto quote and the comparison screen. I want to pause for just a moment to see if anyone has a question about the workflow that we went through for the auto. We are going to go through a home and dwelling fire quote. So again, use that Q&A box if you have any questions. Please just type them there, and I'll be glad to answer those questions for you. Okay, the first question I have is that how do I edit the carrier credentials if the carrier didn't rate and the message is related to that? From the admin, from any screen, you just go to Manage Real-Time Passwords, select that carrier from the drop-down, and then enter the values or correct the values. Click Save, and that will allow you to move forward. When I exit admin, brings me right back down to that quote, to that comparison screen. Any other question before we move on to a home quote? Okay. Here at the top, I have two options. I can click Clients, and that'll bring me back to all of the client list, or I can click Quotes, and it will stay within my client and allow me then to see the quotes and do a new quote. I'm going to do a new home quote. Again, I'm just going to pick a few carriers here. If I do all, it selects all that I have credentials available for. I'm just going to jump down through here and do a few. Okay. Again, I can select the template. If I had a completed template, then it would pre-fill all of the data. As I click next to move forward, I may have to make a selection based on the protection class or the territory that allows me to rate this risk at this location. Here, very similar, my today as my effective date. Here's those home coverage forms. I said we'd talk a little bit about it. The HO2, of course, is the broad form. The HO3 is the homeowners. My HO4 if it's a renter's. HO5 if it's a open peril, and HO6 if it's a condo. We're just going to go with an HO3 today. Again, here's that lead source if I want to identify where this lead came from. I'm going to go through and just make the selections for the prior carrier. Here on the home, it wants to know the industry and occupation on the individual. You can see that the protection class has been determined based on that address here at the bottom and did not require any additional selection from me. As I click next to move forward, here's that year built. When I enter that, my dwelling will populate, how many members in the household, going through and just entering the required fields. And what's the square footage? It's going to make us a little house today. Of course, we've got lots of other fields here that we can answer, but I'm just going through and doing the required fields. You'll want to go through and answer everything that's appropriate for your risk so you do get a valid quote. Go ahead and click next. It brings me up to the home coverage information. So here, I'm going to just use the example of a $100,000 house. Now, it will default the other coverages to what the ISO standard percentage is, but I like to have a little higher for my personal property. So I'm going to edit that field and go forward. Replacement cost on contents and dwelling. And then if I have an amount of insurance applied to those. Moving forward to the additional information. Here's where you're going to find a lot of those coverages that you're going to want to spend some time, go through, make sure you have everything selected that you want covered on this risk. Go all the way to the bottom. And based on your selection from the left-hand column, it may populate some selections on the right-hand. We're just going to add some basic protective devices and move forward on that quote. Like the auto, here's my home loss information. If you enter a date, then it will allow you to select all of the appropriate fields so that you can document the loss. We're going to make this one clean and move forward. Now, home for me, I think always has more company questions than what I see in auto. Let me just go down through here and get the ones that are required so that I can rate. And again, if I had more carriers, I might have a page 2 or even a page 3. If I click rate, if I missed any, it will prompt me to come back. This moves us on to that comparison page. Very similar to what you saw in the auto. Again, export goes to a management system, the accord forms, the proposal, messages, a premium. Here's the carrier name. I can click the submit logo, again, to bridge over to that carrier. I have the same messaging, print detail, and print functions as I had on the auto. So any questions about that run through on the home quote workflow? I do want to get through a package and a dwelling fire before we run out of time. So go ahead, if you have any questions, just enter those in the Q&A box. I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do a package just to move us forward in time. Here you can see on both the auto and home quote, I had a create package button. Now I can create a package from a line of business, and I'm going to tell it I want to use the existing auto I have. It'll show it for me there, and I'll go okay. Now you can enter a package from the start and then split it out. You can see here in the package, I can also split this out into an auto or a home for the monolines. I'm just going to click next and go through to validate that everything I had in that monoline that came into this package is correct. So I've got a required field here. I've added a carrier of Nationwide, and they want to know the purchase date on this car. So let me get that entered. Okay, again, you can see as if I have required fields, it does prompt me, doesn't let me move forward. Looks good there on the driver. Here's my losses, they're fine. My company questions were okay. And then it moves me right through that home where I can again review those pages, make any changes that I need to for this package, get to the rate comparison screen. All right, so it's a little different here for the comparison screen because I have both an auto and a home. Again, you have an export. I have the proposals. I have messages. There's my home premium broken out, my auto by term, and then the annualized for the total auto and home. Same functionality with my print and my detail. Same functionality with clicking the carrier logo to submit over. So again, I can break out this package. If I started in a package and then I want to do a monoline auto or home, I can just click that and it will break it out for me. Any questions about that package workflow? Okay. I'm going to go ahead and do a dwelling fire so that if we have any questions at the end. Dwelling fire was released a couple weeks ago, so it's a new line of business available, but because you had that in your desktop, FSC Rater, we wanted to make that available for you. I'm going to select a couple of carriers here. Notice these are red. I have not entered credentials for this carrier, so I cannot select it. Go ahead and click Next. There's that general information. If I want to add a lead source on it, you have the basic fire and the dwelling fire here available. What's my liability type? And clicking Next. Because a dwelling fire is normally not the same as the client's primary address, we have to have a location here, and I have an address here. We're going to enter 1104 West 129th Street. And again, the zip code for that one is, and as I click off, you can see here, I get an option. It does do that address lookup, and there you can see this one verified for me. So that's where my client level address did not verify, this one did. So I move forward then, what's the dwelling? What's the property? Do I want other structures, loss of use? What do I want here? If I have a prior carrier or none, what year was this built in? And then it'll calculate my age of dwelling, the purchase date on it. All right. I have the optional coverages here. If it's an older home, I want to do renovations. We go through for next. The coverages here, very similar to what we have for that homeowners, but they're more specific to what's applicable for the dwelling fire. We still have loss options, company questions, and the rate page. So here you can see I do not have an export to management system at this time. That may be a future enhancement. I do have proposals, messages. None of these carriers offered me a submit or bridge logo. So that is the dwelling fire. I'm going to click on the clients here and get us back to our landing page. And let's see if we have any questions that you have on any of the workflow from login to the landing page to rating the lines of business. Any questions, just enter it in the Q&A box. I'll be glad to answer those for you. Yes, the help, the online help, the how-to, you can see it gives you a long list of everything available. So you can go through that if you have to have a how-to question on doing any of the quoting or changing a user type, adding or removing a carrier, all of that available is in the help, yes. Any other questions? Okay. If we don't have any other questions, I'll go ahead and end this session for today. Thank you so very much for your time. I hope you enjoy your FSC Rater upgrade product. Thank you.